20 years ago, I would sit there with like a jewelry catalog and I would flip through pages with my headset on while I was cold calling because it like distracted my mind a little bit from the boring part.
Welcome to Your Intended Message, the perfect place for leaders and promising professionals who want to convey the intended message for greater success. Every week, we interview experts who address the challenges and best practices to deliver your message effectively. That might be one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And perhaps the most important conversation, one-to-self. I'm your host, George Torok.
Welcome to the podcast about communication in business. I'm your host, George Torok. Did you know that I'm known as the speech coach for executives? That's because I help business leaders deliver the intended message for greater success. And we do that through one-on-one coaching or group training for the team. When you listen to this podcast, you will hear advice and insights from communication experts from around the world. My guest today is Beck, Cuellar. Here's 3 facts that I think you should know about Ashley. 1, she spent 17 years selling to car dealers. Oh, that must have been a breeze.
Yeah, no problem at all. So
I can imagine. 2, she believes that natural curiosity is one of the greatest strengths any seller can have. And I will second that. I believe curiosity is a powerful tool. And 3, she's a yoga instructor and has dreams of creating a yoga retreat for sales leaders. Beck, Cuellar, welcome to Your Intended Message.
thank you for having me, George. It's wonderful to be here.
Delighted to be talking with you. And I know we're going to explore communication in selling. And what I noticed on your LinkedIn profile was, because first thing we do, going to meet someone, let's look them up on LinkedIn. I noticed that you combine, or you suggest that people combine EQ, in other words, usually considered emotional intelligence, with artificial intelligence. Now, how do you keep those two concepts in the same sentence? Never mind mindset. What are you really trying to say there?
I think that sellers usually have pretty creative minds. And if they use the AI tools that we have available to us now to enhance that creativity and to enhance their already natural abilities, then it will just make them more powerful sellers. And I think that a lot of that comes from learning how to actually use some of these tools and not just use ChatGPT as a content creation machine, because there's a lot more that you can do with it.
Oh, okay. I'm curious. So which are some of the tools that you suggest?
Well, so some of the things I gave a seminar actually last week about this, and it came up. Well, the seminar was actually on mindset, on sales mindset, and the pillars of sales mindset that I talk about often. But one of the golden nuggets that 3 different guys that were in the seminar came away from it with were recording your calls and taking the transcript. I use Fathom for mine typically, taking the transcript and uploading it to ChatGPT and giving ChatGPT the knowledge in the prompt or in the folder that you're using. If you're using a folder, telling it that you're looking at this call through the scope of abundance and detachment, and ask it in the call, what language did I use that became attached or scarce? At what point did I sound like I was grasping or like I was grabbing for something? So it's a tool that can give you a lot of knowledge about how you come across as a salesperson. Now, there obviously are companies who are created around that entire thing. So there are tools out there and companies that have created tools out there that do exactly what I just explained. But for the solopreneur salesperson at home, if they don't want to pay for a bunch of more tools, Fathom and ChatGPT kind of make it happen.
Ashley, now that tip itself is probably worth the whole conversation already. In fact, I think, and I just want to shut this down right now and go ahead and try that out, because that is a brilliant and interesting concept. So record your call, and then have ChatGPT analyze your language, the words you use that are indicative of either of abundance mindset and attachment, and of course the lack thereof.
Correct.
And that is so powerful, because I certainly appreciate and understand the power of our words and how our intended message, what we might not come across because of the words we use. And I know some people have no clue. And what an eye-opener that would be to get that kind of feedback. Wow.
Well, and then the other thing that you can do with ChatGPT is because like you said, when we are speaking, when we are in that call, our intended message is to get across to them the solution that we are providing or something like that, whatever the meaning of the phone call is. But then sometimes we miss that message. And when we don't know that until we hear it back and until somebody looks at that for us and says, oh, this phrase that you used right here shows some scarcity. And then the beautiful thing is ChatGPT will say things like, can I help you reword that or tell you a different way to say that removes the scarcity from that language? And those are the things that I coach. So am I afraid that AI is going to take my job from me? No, I'm not afraid of that at all. I think it's a wonderfully helpful tool. And I personally have fed my own sales strategy to a ChatGPT folder so that it knows all of my pillars of strategy when it comes to mindset and sales. And I can ask it any questions about my phone call. Like, is my balance off? Is my objectivity missing in this phone call? Am I losing sight of what's actually important? You can ask those things just because you miss them sometimes as the person on the other end of the conversation.
Yes. And I know when I've listened to phone calls that I've had that I hear messages that I didn't hear when I was on the call.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking, how did I miss that?
Absolutely. And that's one of the beautiful things about the call recording software that we have now is that it's so intuitive. And for somebody like me who loves to be engaged in the conversation, to be able to not have to sit here and take notes while we're talking and be able to come back to that transcript, that recorded phone call, and it will tell me all the questions you asked, all the questions I asked, all the things I said I was going to do, all the things you said you were going to do. It's so helpful. And there are so many other things you can do with it. I had a girlfriend of mine, Allison Simmons, who's an AI expert. She has her whole setup so that when she has those phone calls, Zapier automatically takes her to-do items and puts them on a to-do list for her. It's so nice. Like just little personal assistant all set up for her. It's great.
Wow. Wow. And I'm thinking as you're saying that, maybe I should actually take these interviews and run them through ChatGPT in terms of how can I be a better interviewer? Where did I miss something? Where was there depth there? What was the message that I could have explored more? Here's my intent. Here's what I want to do. Did I do that?
Absolutely, you could. That would be an awesome way to do it. And you can even ask it to pull out moments for you where you could have asked another question maybe or something like that. Adding that curiosity, because we were talking about the curiosity part. I always say my favorite thing to say is the best question is one that has a follow-up question. Not already in your head, but the best kind of questions are ones that you have another question for because you're into the topic and you're hearing the answer from the person and then taking that answer and asking a follow-up question. Those are the best kinds of questions. And that natural curiosity, like sometimes you get so into the conversation, so into the interview that you miss a spot where some other questions could have been, and that can pick that up for you.
Mm. Now, we're talking about selling, and I'm wondering if people have given up on phone calls when it comes to selling. And in the olden days, that's all we could do.
Right. It's true.
You had to call people.
It's true. No, George, I don't think that we are giving up on it completely. I think that sales is an incredibly hard profession to be in. And we need all of the tools at our disposal to move the needle a lot of times. And the phone thing is tricky because we all have cell phones now, right? And there are very few landlines. Even a lot of offices, they're on cloud service phone lines, so it's just harder to get through to people, but it still is an important part of communication. However, I do think that it is important to reach out to the people who are talking to you in the same medium in which they are contacting you. So if they call you, call them back. But if I text you and you call me, then I'm like flustered because I was texting you. Do you know what I mean? The message is that this is how I'm communicating with you. So that's how I would like you to communicate back with me. And very often people are communicating digitally. They're submitting a form online and then somebody's picking up a phone and calling them. And maybe that's not really what they want. They were communicating a certain way to begin with. And maybe their intended message was, I would like this to stay online. Please send me an email.
Now, how do we know when it is appropriate to change the medium?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that is something that's just kind of nuanced, and you have to, honestly, there are a lot of processes. Sales processes are in place for a reason. And yes, there are changes and there are times when you make a little change in them. But if you are in your industry, in your lane, and you know the process is set up that when a form comes in, they're used to somebody picking up the phone, making a call, asking for a specific numbers for a quote or something like that, whatever it is, then that's fine. But I also say, if you're not getting response, change the message or change the channel by which you are providing the message. So change the message or change the channel. Those are the things. That's one of the things that I say all the time. So if you're calling and they're never picking up, then send an email. Or if you're sending 1,000 emails and you're getting no response, pick up the phone. But also part of marketing and sales and being in front of your customers is also being in front of them everywhere, right? So it's sending them an email, leaving them a voicemail, sending them a DM on LinkedIn, perhaps, because then they're seeing your name in multiple places. And eventually they're like, I'm going to answer this Ashley girl because she's found me everywhere.
Are you in favor of cold calling?
I am in favor of cold outreach and in any form that it needs to come. But I am in favor of thoughtful cold outreach and not the kind where you're blowing up the phone and blazing 100 calls a day. That to me does not make sense. It makes a lot more sense if I know who I'm calling. I know they're in my ICP and I know that they have a problem that I can solve. I'm not just calling and saying, hi, are you a business? I solve problems for businesses. So it's a little bit more thoughtful than that.
Yeah. And I get those messages both on the phone or email that say, are you still coaching?
Yeah. Do some research. It's terrible. I know. Well, and it's depending on who your ICP, your intended customer is, cold calling can be more effective or less effective. When I was cold calling car dealerships. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, car dealerships still have hard lines. You can still call the front desk and ask for the general manager. And so it's a little bit easier of a cold call because those are easy to find. Dealerships are easy to find. They've got a number you can call. It's not that easy everywhere. If you're a software company trying to get a hold of marketing directors at other software businesses, you might struggle to get a good hardline number for that. And that's, I wasn't cold calling a ton at the end of my career in auto, but at the beginning there, it was 50 to 100 calls a day to as many dealerships as I could find, but it was still qualifying back then because the data, 20 years ago, the data wasn't as great. And so we were cold calling anything that looked like a car dealership. And some of them were like Bob's Auto Sales that has 5 cars down the road. And then some of them were, national chains that were publicly traded stores. So you kind of had to filter through them. But now you can do that a little bit differently with other companies and that provide data and things like that. So
how did you keep yourself moving forward when you're making 150 to 100 calls a day? Where do you get the energy? Because it's got to be more than just curiosity that kept you going.
Yeah.
Starvation, maybe?
Yeah, truly. I think my first base salary as a salesperson was $27,000 a year. And then trying to make some commission on top of that. I don't know. I think you have to be a high energy person from the get-go to have the energy to do it every day. Now, do I think you have to have high energy in general to do the job? Not necessarily, but it was a lot of distracting yourself too. I said this on another podcast recently where I would look at magazines, catalogs while I was cold calling. And I know that the kids, George, probably don't know what catalogs are these days. But 20 years ago, I would sit there with like a jewelry catalog and I would flip through pages with my headset on while I was cold calling because it like distracted my mind a little bit from the boring part and like getting through the calls. Because honestly, a lot of times when you're cold calling, you're getting more, they're not here today, or voicemail or something like that. People think that cold calling is miserable because people are so mad at you all the time and hanging up on you and telling you no. Not really. It's mostly just boring because you're getting people's voicemail all the time. So I would actually, a no was a great message for me to get because then I can check it off the list, move it to a follow-up and keep going. And so that was always better intended than a voicemail. I liked that better. But that's it. Distraction and just being around your friends. I think the other thing about cold calling is that when there's a group of cold callers together and they all are, like at a lot of companies, people in business development are all in the same area and they're kind of doing that together on a power hour type thing so that the energy is all the same and they're all doing the same thing at the same time. Makes it a little bit easier to deal with that way too.
What's a good opening line on a cold call?
You're going to love this. Mine's not interesting at all. So typically I say, hi, this is Ashley. This is a cold call. I know you love these. Do you have 30 seconds? That's it. Sometimes if it's somebody that I know and that I've done a lot of research on, I will tell them this is a cold call, but I have done my research. I know a lot about what we're going to talk about. And if you have just 30 seconds, I'll tell you what it is. And then you can give me a yes or no. We can move on.
That appeals to me. I like that it was friendly. You said your name and you pointed out that it's a cold call. So right off the bat, I go, oh, okay, well, at least this person is honest. Mm-hmm. So, that's a positive to me. And then you promise 30 seconds and I trust that you get your message, your offer out in 30 seconds, and then they decide if they want to talk longer or not.
Correct. And that is the other important part. That was the follow-up to that is if you ask, can I have 30 seconds? You must only take 30 seconds. You cannot take longer than that because then you've broken trust. So I think that it's just no one wants to make a cold call or pick up a cold call. I sell very much on the theory that I would like to sell the way that I would like to buy. And so if I am doing something that feels icky to me, like not something that I would respond to, then I will not do that. And so I would prefer upfront honesty, real quick, let me know what's going on, and then we can go from there. So I just think it's easy. And cold call isn't always the terminology I use. Sometimes I use sales call, but that's typically, at the beginning, 17 years ago when I was a sales baby, I used to say, my name is Ashley. I work with a company called Triado. That probably doesn't ring a bell, but have you heard of us before? So that would be typically how I would open that call too, because then at least I've said the company name also, and they can give me a yes or a no. Usually it's no, and I get to tell them who we are. So.
Okay. And I like that approach because I get annoyed when I answer the phone and the call's from someone I don't know, and their first words are, hi, how are you today?
I know it. Why do they do that?
Like, you don't care how I am. You called me. And occasionally I will respond with, did you call me to find out how I am?
Because you didn't.
Yeah, you did. Right off the bat. So that's a lie from the beginning. One, they're pretending to be personal. Two, they're pretending to care and they don't.
Yeah.
And not a good way to start a call.
No. Nope, not at all. Well, and cold calling is you have very few seconds to build trust, right? Very few seconds. And so if you can be honest right from the get-go, it gives you just that much trust that you're starting to build. So I love that way. I personally do not answer very many cold calls on I don't answer my phone if I don't recognize the number. Do you answer them ever?
I do. It depends on the time of the day and it depends on my mood and what I'm doing at the time. I see that if I'm not in the middle of something and the phone rings, I'll figure, okay, I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Part of it's curiosity on my part. One, because I'm wondering, oh, okay, what's this person offering? Is it something I'm interested in? And what's their presentation? How they come across? So it's partly, it's curiosity and educational for me. And there might be something of value there, might not be. And I decide pretty quickly.
It's true. It's true. I have this concept that I probably made up, but I call it sales karma. And I try to answer a call here and there and like say no or like listen to what they're saying, because I just feel like it's part of the karma of the universe that, you know, as a salesperson who has had to cold call many times and still does that, then I should answer every once in a while and let them talk, let them see what they have to say.
And I actually like to answer the door when someone knocks on the door.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I'm just curious, okay, what are they offering and what's their approach?
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm eager. It's not that I'm eager. Oh, someone's here. I got to talk to someone. No, it's not that. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
And then I recall one time a fella knocked on the door, and when I opened it, his first words were, "We were in the neighborhood."
No, you were not. I hate when they do that. I saw you walk from the neighbor's house. Yeah, you were in the neighborhood. You were right next door.
and what I did say to him is I said, "So what?" And he didn't have an answer. He didn't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I know.
And you know, I remember when I was a kid knocking on doors, selling newspapers, fundraising for the school.
Oh yeah.
And I believe that that's something that everyone should do. They should go through that door knocking exercise routine to experience what it is to see when someone comes to the door. What do you want?
Yeah, I know, truly. And I also do that because often it is young salespeople that are the ones that are boots on the ground. And so I do answer the door to hear, because so often they have these big smiles on their face and they're like so full of energy, and it's hard to get the door shut in your face over and over and over. And to see them still smiling, I'm glad to open the door and say, I don't need a new roof right now, but I'm happy to have a conversation with you and I will take your card. You know, I mean, in the spirit of sales, I will continue to do that.
Yes. And I feel the same way when it comes to young people who are going about that. And I like to encourage them, say, I don't need that, but keep going.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Because we all started selling somewhere, right? Like my first actual, like not just the fundraising and the door, I sold M&Ms by the box for soccer and all of those things. So I did all of those too. But when I was in college, my freshman year, I got a job with the foundation, with the college's foundation, and I called alumni for donations. And so that was a call center job. And we got put on different campaigns. Like some were campaigns where you're calling kids who just graduated last year and asking them for $150. And they're like, yeah, I don't think so. And then some of them were, you know, alumni who had been around for years. They give $1,000 every year. You just call them and they say, yes, please. And you go on with it. So I really learned a ton about how to be on the phone from that job. And I was good at it. I was the number two fundraiser, and the only one who the fundraiser who was ahead of me was a woman who was retired, and she worked every day, and I couldn't work every day because I was in college. But I learned so much about communication and about how to act on the phone, how to act in one of those calls. So it really was a great job to have as a freshman in college to learn more about, selling and business and communication.
Introverts versus extroverts. Who makes better salespeople?
I don't typically lean on either of those. Everybody thinks extroverts for sure, but that's not necessarily the truth, because sometimes if you're an over extrovert, you never listen. You never stop to hear. And the introverts will listen and they will hear the things that the extroverts are missing. So I think a good mix. But honestly, have you ever heard of a book called The Challenger Sale? A book called The Challenger Sale. And I wish I could remember the names of the authors. It's terrible of me that I can't. But it talks a little bit more about just the personality of a salesperson and leaning in and being a bit more assertive when you are helping a client and not just being a best friend. And I think that is the trap sometimes that introverts will fall into is they're a little bit more people pleasery and want to be best friends and want to just do what the client is asking rather than maybe push a little bit and try to get what's in the client's best interest going on, where sometimes a little bit more aggressive personality is willing to get in there and do that.
And I can see that the value in saying, here's what the offer is. I understand your situation and here's how we can fix it. And this is what we do. We don't do all these other things. That's something else. And the danger is promising to fix everything when you know you can't.
Absolutely. One of the best examples, the direct mail marketing that I did with auto dealers is a perfect example of times where I very often had to say, you want to give me $50,000 to do this project, and I want to do what's best with that $50,000. And the plan that you have in your mind is not the best option. Money will be wasted if we do it that way. And so let's talk together, see what your plan is and what the best strategy is, and then try to intertwine those two so that we're getting what you want, but also have a good strategy going into spending all this money on marketing. Because clients come to the table with money and they want to give it to you, but they want to do their strategy when they're not an expert in that field yet. And so you need to help them, but also part of selling is helping them figure it out on their own and make it their idea so that it's not all your idea because they want to be part of that. And so that's a lot of what selling is too, is helping them understand it from seeing it from their own eyes and you plant the idea rather than you telling them, this is what I think we should do. But I did get to push. I did have to push back often when, examples like people would want to say, I want to mail to every Toyota Camry owner in 150-mile radius. And I would be like, okay, there are a lot of nuances that go into that. But then it's me saying, I hear that. I think that we can hit all of those people in a different way. We'll do it a different way, but we'll make it happen. So still getting their message, obviously, still getting their intended message out to the people that they want it to, but me helping them design how we're going to do that in a way that makes sense for their budget and for their money.
So the different way would be based on cost and the practicality of accomplishing that.
Yeah. Well, and not to get too far in the weeds of it, but to target those very specific owners. The postage cost is higher. The list cost is higher. The product cost might be higher because you're going to send a different product. You're also probably not 100 miles is too far to mail unless you're in North Dakota, South Dakota, somewhere where people are used to driving 2 hours for groceries. So things like that, like those are the things that they aren't necessarily thinking about. And so I'm coming in and saying this product, if we send it to all the people, is going to still hit those people, but it's going to cost less or the same. And we get to send out more invitations. So we get more people to our party. So I digress. The auto marketing world is such a teeny tiny box that I'm an expert at, but I know so much about it. It's very odd. And
the way you just explained that just made so much sense. So I can imagine someone hearing you say that and going, "Oh, yeah, okay, that's better."
Well, good. I'm glad that it came off that way then. Have you done much with car dealers in your experience, in your career?
My only experience has been buying a car.
Which is always so much fun.
Yeah, which isn't, not necessarily.
Not your favorite thing to do. I have a girlfriend who her business is helping people buy cars. She's like a car buying coach. Like she kind of does it for you. She helps you pick out the cars and you just pay her a flat fee and she does all the work with the dealer. All you do is pick out the car. She does all the work with the dealer. It's amazing. It's a great service.
What a fantastic service.
Yeah, I know, because no one likes to buy cars, really. Like there are very few people who enjoy engaging in that experience. And to hire, and I know two people that do it, both females, and they just charge a flat fee and they help you find the car through whatever their network of dealers. And they set up test drives for you and they do all the negotiating.
Wow. What a great service. Yeah, I can see a great need for that.
Yeah.
Now, in a sales conversation, when and how does one bring up the money? question?
The economics part. Well, so a lot of our money mindset is deep rooted, right? So a lot of that comes from how we were raised and how money was talked about in our household. And if you are someone who is comfortable talking about money in lots of situations, then you will also be better at talking about it in a sales situation. I was raised in a house where my dad regularly shared our house's financial records with my sisters and I, just so that we were learning, just kind of taught us about, because he is a sole practicing attorney. And so it was kind of like big cases come in and then sometimes nothing happens for a while. And so he would show us those things. And I think that prepared me in life to talk more about the economic conversation. It's also really important that you see your value or the value of the product that you are pricing to someone and feel confident in that pricing, because people can feel it and hear it if you aren't confident in it. If you are delivering a quote or a price to someone and there's hesitation in your voice, they will hear that and they can feel that. And so being confident that you are providing a service or a value for what you're offering and saying that out loud, communicating that value is the easiest part of it, because then you don't feel like you have to defend or anything like that. You feel like you have the value there for what you're providing. And there's a big difference between selling services and products.
And I would imagine perhaps to help convince yourself or reinforce yourself of the value is to review other client testimonials of how you've helped them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That does help with value for sure. And especially in a services-based industry, when I'm selling a product, even though it was marketing, there still are some line items that I can show to get to a certain price. You know what I mean? But when you're selling a service, it's very much, I'm providing value. This is what you get for the value. And it's there. But I think people just have to be confident about those conversations. Like I said, you just have to, and sometimes I'm not big on scripts or rehearsing things, but for people who aren't comfortable with those conversations, rehearsing, saying the price, the quote, rehearsing, saying it out loud makes it easier to say in the conversation. So just repeating to yourself or to the mirror or to your computer a couple of times, my half day service is $3,000. My full day service is $8,000. It's 3 hours or 6 hours, just saying those things out loud over and over makes it easier for you to say them when it comes time.
Ashley, for those who might be interested in developing their sales skills, you're going to be launching a 6-month sales reset class program. Yeah. The next one is going to be in October. Correct. Who's that for and what will they get there?
So that is for anyone who feels like they are in a selling position. I was a full cycle sales account executive. So that is where my teachings mostly come from. But I have been a solopreneur over the last year. And so have lessons that come from that as well. It is going to be a small group. So it's not large. Too many people, the communication gets muddled and then we don't really know what's going on anymore. So I prefer it to stay a small group. But it's also people who they know a little bit about sales, but they've never really been coached in a formal sense in sales. And it's funny. I had a sales coach for my whole career, basically. I had a couple different ones at the beginning and then the same one for 15 years. So I thought that everybody had a sales coach. And it wasn't until I came out on my own that I realized, nope, not really. Most people don't have one. And so to be that for the people that want it, that's what it's there for.
And you can find that a link in the description below. And Leslie, that domain is?
salessparkcoaching.com.
Good. And the link is below. Ashley, as we prepare to wrap up, imagine you're sitting down with a sales leader as they're preparing to start their day to make outbound sales reach, whether it's phoning or emailing. If you could offer them 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice to get a good start on a day and have a productive day, what would be that advice?
Oh, George, thank you for asking this question because this is my favorite question to answer. The very first thing that I would recommend is to close your eyes Get nice and comfortable in your seat and take a big deep breath. Inhale through your nose to a count of 4. Hold it for 4 at the top. Exhale for a count of 4. And then hold it for 4 at the bottom and do that 3 times. That's the first thing I would tell them, because that is a complete reset for your neurological system so that you can start from a base that is calm and collected and ready to go. And then I would also tell them that there is enough for all of us. There is enough to go around. So there is no end to the list. Even if it looks like there's an end to the list, there's not. There's always more. There's new businesses starting and closing every day. So there is enough for all of us. That's what I would say. Those are the best tips. Honestly, mindset is the tool that so many sellers leave out. We have so many different trackers and AI tools and software, this, that, and the other. But really, if we don't sit down and get our mind right before we start our day and start with gratitude and abundance and intent and calming our minds, then all those tools don't matter. So,
powerful advice. My guest today is Ashley Beck Cuellar, reminding you to check your language for abundance and attachment.
yes.
If you like what you heard, tell your friends and post your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because that helps more listeners find us. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you deliver your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.